Good morning, my not-so-early risers. I'm Michaela, as John said, and today I'm going to be sharing with you a little bit of my testimony and just how I've come to embrace my identity as a child of God. Now, a little backstory. I grew up in a non-religious household raised by a single mom, and I was a daddy's girl to a father who was just never really around. I suffered with abandonment issues, I had trust issues, and I had this be prepared for the worst mentality, and to top it off, I had a tendency to internalize literally everything. And I always wanted to be somebody else, to be accepted so that people would stay, but it left me empty and a stranger to myself. From ages 11 to 20, I had come to hate myself so much that I was self-harming to cope with the emotional pain I felt I couldn't express to my family or peers. Now, I'm sure you're all mostly familiar with the story where Jesus walks on water. Now, if you don't, the disciples are in a boat, they're in the middle of the storm, and Jesus is coming up to them, and they think he's a ghost, but he's not. So what I find interesting is, despite being in the middle of a storm, Peter cries out to Jesus in Matthew 14:28, saying, "Lord, if it is you, command me to walk to you on the waters." Now, notice he doesn't just ask for Jesus to change his circumstances. Instead, he asks to experience a move of God. He doesn't ask for Jesus to just call the sea to still, even though he's done it before. He wants something different. He wants something new. He steps out in faith, believing that what lies beyond this boat is safer and so much greater than where he currently is. He steps out of the boat like a child taking his first steps towards the Father, knowing that the arms outstretched to receive him will be there to catch him whether he sinks or swims. Now, about a year ago, a friend's faith had shown me a light and a love I didn't know God had to offer. He showed me Jesus in the middle of my storm. Now, I remember crying out in desperation to God, saying, "Lord, if you're even real, if you're who this friend says you are, help me, because I can't do this anymore." I wanted out of my boat. And sure enough, he didn't call me as I stand here before you out of the boat. He called out the child in me that I had forgotten about, the child in me that I had given up on, the child in me full of hope and love and dreams before the world made her heart hard, the child in me who never thought she was enough. And he said, "You are seen, you are enough, you are loved, and more than that, you are mine." And you don't need to hide in the darkness anymore. Now, not so ironically, the first message I heard here posed the question, who is Jesus to you? And after a year of allowing God to tear down the walls that I had built and breathe life back into my life, I think in figuring out who Jesus is to me, I desperately needed to know who I am to Jesus. Now, I am no longer a slave to my circumstances. My identity is not defined by the mistakes I've made nor the hardships I've faced. I am not a slave to shame or the labels I've taken on because of it. I am not a coward too afraid to speak up for herself. I am not toxic. I am not a burden. I am not better off dead. I am a child, a beloved child of God, a child of light, not of darkness. And Jesus is the father, the parent even, that I've always needed. He's emotionally available and faithful to keep his promises. He holds my healing in his hands. The scars on his resurrected body not only say, "I have already won your war," but I understand your pain and I am here. I have been here holding you close even before you'd open my eyes to see me. Now, if there's anyone here suffering from depression, suicidal thoughts, or thinks they're too broken to be loved or accepted, I want you to know that there's a God who sees more than where you're at, who sees that child in God who he's always created you to be. Notice he comes to the disciples on the boat before they even ask him. He's faithful. Matthew 11:28 says, "Come to me, all of you who are weary and heavy burdened, and I'll give you rest." just come. In all your brokenness and all your shame and all of your imperfections, just come to him, and he will turn all of that darkness, all of that pain into something so much greater, something you couldn't even imagine. I couldn't have even imagined that he would take such a broken person and put me on this stage. Like, I think when Peter sinks a little later, he didn't doubt Jesus. I don't think he necessarily doubted who he was, but he doubted that he was a child of God. And I want you to know that you are all children of God, and his arms are open and waiting. Thank you.